welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Playbook. On this week's episode, which is episode 58, we have Brian Kanicki. How you doing today, Brian?
Doing great, thank you.
Excellent, excellent. So, Brian, tell us a little bit about your real estate journey. Kind of, how long have you been doing it now? And,
Sure.
What are some of the things that you're having success with?
Well, first off, I can't believe this is 58 already.
Yeah.
That's just crazy because I was on number 9 was the first time I was on the show. And that seemed like it was just a couple days ago, a couple weeks ago, but
That was a year ago.
yeah, holy cow, holy cow. So, you obviously know, but for folks that are watching, I was in law enforcement for almost 26 years and looking to transition to a new career. And I've been talking about doing this for a few years, but it was last summer, 2021. Took the online classes and did all that stuff, and came over here to 54. I think I onboarded in July, but really didn't get started until end of August or so of 2021. And really the market was hot. It was hot then. We had leads coming in, and it was like easy to be a realtor, right?
Yeah.
You just had to show up, and hit the ground running and really did well really initially.
Was it 6 or 7 your first month? I remember that.
Yeah, and like that first September through the end of the year, I did almost $4 million, real quick. So I'm like, this is easy. This is great. Why didn't I do this,
Before.
years ago? And I think it helped with Mike Peoples was my team lead at the time and had really good support around us, and it allowed me to, and it really was impressed upon me that there's lots and lots of people who are realtors who hang a license. I've seen studies that say there's 20-some thousand in Central Florida, but to do this job properly, you have to treat it like a job.
Absolutely.
You have to get up, and you have to have a schedule, and you need to have a plan every day to move your business forward. And that was something that was very impressed upon me early on, and I think that's what has helped me succeed to where I'm at now. But this was such a new thing for me. Being in government work for 25 plus years, you were told where to be, when to be, how to be. You had a hierarchy of bosses, and then all of a sudden I'm in a career now that you're on your own.
Right.
So that was a big jump, and a big transition for me, and for people who are coming from that kind of a job to your own entrepreneur, run your own kind of business. 54 is here for support, and any brokerage is there more for support, but it's really on you to run your business. So that's probably been my biggest challenge, is just learning how to work that way now.
Self-manage.
Yeah, self-manage, and keep myself on a schedule and keep myself on track.
It sounds like, so kind of what I'm hearing is, one of the things, and you kind of learned early on, which, I think is a great attribute to learn, is, to be successful in this industry, you got to be self-disciplined. It's about the little things. We always talk about the compound effect. It's constantly doing those little things that most people skip over and over again. And then accountable, but from your previous employment as a detective, obviously you had people to be accountable. When you're an agent, yes, you have the support, but you're accountable to yourself.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that I was able to kind of bring with me to this career was being very, very detail oriented, being able to talk to people. And that's something, maybe it's a generational thing now, where people are so focused on technology that this job is all about building relationships with people. It's about building relationships with the client, whether it's a buyer or seller, building relationships with vendors, building relationships with other agents, building relationships with the brokerage. And that's something that I had to do in law enforcement, especially as a detective, and talking to people you could be talking to the homeless person who's on drugs, to $1 million homeowner or business owner, in the matter of within minutes of each other. So that's something that was, I already kind of had that traits or those abilities, and that really transcended here in real estate. While it's been a major change, I've been able to utilize a lot of my experiences, my education and training to kind of learn how to talk to people and know how to talk to people and read people and know whether I need to continue to call people or not.
Kind of read the room.
Yeah, and that works well in negotiations now too. But where before, when I first started here year and a half ago, there was no negotiations. It was send me an offer. We're not even talking to you. We won't even let you know if you got accepted or not most of the time. And now we're back to like more real estate 101. What I'm learning is you really have to build those relationships, and you've got to be able to negotiate. You've got to be able to give and take. And a true negotiation is usually a lose-lose situation. You're going to give up a little bit of something. Everybody is in the real negotiations, and coming to some of these contracts that we're working with now. So
yeah, absolutely. And I've always thought too, one thing that you kind of touched on is, it's always the value of relationships over a deal. A deal will come and go, but it's developing these relationships where whether it's a referral source that can bring you a constant flow of business or a client that you're going to multiple transaction with. It's always better to focus on the relationships than the actual transaction.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I had to kind of learn how to do too was, it's not always about making the sale, like you said. It's about building that relationship, and maybe it's overused term, but it's very effective. It's adding value to people, and sometimes it's not just what you can do to sell or buy a home for them, but it's what you can do when they need a lawn care guy, what you can do when they need a roofer. Having those contacts, and I coming into this, I didn't have a lot of those contacts. I maybe have one, but we have a nice network here at 54 that I'm able to at least reach out to another agent who's got somebody, or I can look at our vendor list that people have utilized successfully and had good relationships with.
Absolutely.
And grab from those resources. So it makes me look very knowledgeable to a potential client as well. So that's one of the things I stress to people who are getting into the real estate field, is to find a brokerage that is not just about flashiness, but having those systems in place and having really a relationship within the community that you work in, because there might be some national brands that sound cool and maybe you heard about them, but they don't really have any ties into the community that you might be working in at that time. So that's what's kind of unique about us. I primarily work in North Hillsborough, Old Pasco, and then Hernando, and that's really where our bread and butter is. Yeah. That's where we made our name, and it's been very beneficial for me. So
yeah, absolutely, and I'm glad to hear that. Yeah. So, I got to know, Mike. I got to know, what do you think right now is tougher, Brian? Is solving a cold case as a detective or pinning a deal?
I don't know. Right now, it's a toss-up. It's gotten a lot tougher, obviously. And I solved plenty of cases, but now the market changed in the matter of like a week. It just seemed like it really went from
July,
very much seller's market, and now I don't even know if you'd go all the way to a buyer's market, but we definitely are transcending into a buyer's market right now, where buyers never asked for concessions from sellers.
Inspections.
Inspections. We've got things like 2-for-1 buy downs on the interest rates now that sellers are paying for. Those a couple $1,000s. And one of my last listings, we marketed it as a $5,000 seller concessions towards down payment and closing costs, and that was never heard of a year ago. But I think because of the interest rates creeping up, house values have to come down. And so it is making it a better market for buyers, because they really have an opportunity to not be rushed into, there was so many times where we had to run out right away and see a house, knew there was already deals on the table, knew we had a deadline, where now we can get out there and really take a look at 2, 3, 4 homes. Marinate it a little bit, really think about it, do a little bit of research, put in a good offer. And most of the time, these offers today are under those list prices as opposed to last year. You just had to figure out how much you're going to put over when you could afford over that list price. So it's a different market we're in, obviously, and you've seen this a lot more than I have. So I'm learning as I go along.
This one's a little unique just because of interest rates, right? Because interest rates with finance deals are going to affect affordability, and I haven't seen personally the interest rate spike this high. When I first got back into it, it might have been just sub this, but I haven't seen them, kind of reach it, and how quickly, they accelerated. And then obviously you have sellers still kind of, going off comps, 5-6 months ago. I think once they realize what the new market is, they start listing their homes, with the market price.
Yeah.
We'll have some normalcy with the listings, and then once interest rates they're not so volatile, then, I think buyers, wherever the rates land, a little more comfortable transacting because they know, what that lending environment is going to be.
Yeah. It's going to be a little weird for a few months.
I say till about the first of the year, I think will be, I don't say back to normal, like by any means will be normal. Like, hey, January of 22 will be similar to January of 23. Not like that at all, but it'll be the new norm, and rather than kind of this sporadic volatile market that we're currently in.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this, Ryan. What skill do you think, so your previous occupation as a detective, what's one skill you think from your previous occupation that allowed you to have quicker success in the real estate market?
Probably the communication skills, really. Being able to pick up the phone and talk to somebody, be able to meet people.
So not scared to kind of make those contacts.
Yeah, and just to be able to, just to BS with people. That's a lost art.
Yeah.
Is being able to just to talk to anybody and not be pushy about the sales of, buying and selling a home, but being able to build that relationship, finding some common ground that you can continue to talk about, and really building those relationships through communication. And it's using, calling people, texting, emailing, having that, face-to-face conversations. I really like to, and we've always stressed that, but getting out there and at least showing somebody a house, and you find out a whole lot, even if they're not pre-approved, even if they really don't think that they're totally interested, maybe they're just dipping the toe in the water, maybe it's just this one home, but getting in front of them, building that relationship, finding out if they're, their true sincerity in having a transaction, and even if they aren't, you're building that clientele for the future, maybe.
Absolutely.
I was just talking to Allison out there, and really there's like a 3-tiered approach that I have discovered I need to look at. It's about what am I closing in the next quarter, the next 2-3 months. What am I looking at for the next year? And what am I looking at for maybe 3, 4, 5 years down the road? And those are different types of nurturing.
Absolutely.
They all require their own little, growing in the
campaigns.
garden. Yeah, they're little growing it in the garden kind of thing. Some things are going to sprout quicker, and some are going to take the full year to harvest.
Absolutely.
But I think communicating is a lost art, and being able to just BS with people. And that's probably been what's transcended from my old job to this.
Yeah, and I think it's not just the BS aspect, but I think it's also the caring aspect, right? Yes. So what I'm hearing from you is, some of the things that helped you have, achieve this level of success so quickly is humanizing the experience. You're not just looking at it as a transaction. If they're not ready to go, you're still nurturing that relationship. You're more focused on building that relationship and that rapport than you are getting to make an offer that day.
Absolutely.
And then also is, the value of the face-to-face interaction. Like, it sounds like, and I always, put an emphasis on that, is like, hey, I did everything I can just to get the face-to-face. And once I got the face-to-face, I could build a relationship.
Absolutely.
But I think that's so key, and a lot of people, I think in this market, especially realtors, avoid the face-to-face unless all these boxes are checked. Where I think it's one of the things that needs to be done out the gate.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I think you have to set aside is the importance of getting a contract. It's doing what's best for the people that you're dealing with at the time. And there's been times where we've sat and we've looked at homes and they just can't afford it at this time. So let's get them to a place that maybe they have to build some credit. Maybe they do need to rent for a little while because they don't have any money to put down. So that's not always best for me. I only get paid when we're closing deals, right? But if we do what's best for the client, ultimately, I felt that it works.
Yeah, the universe
works for it. Yeah,
absolutely. I agree 100%. So let me ask you this too: what do you think when you jumped into real estate? What is something that you didn't expect or possibly overlooked when starting your real estate career? What's something you didn't expect?
Sure. How much work you put in without getting paid. I was in a career that you put an hour in, you got paid.
Yeah.
You got paid every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Something that I really had to learn to manage was the sporadic closings. And when you start in this job, you need to have a little nest egg that you can live from for 3 to maybe even 6 months, because it doesn't always happen right away. Especially if you're getting into real estate now, you're not going to have that influx of leads where we couldn't hand out leads fast enough a lot of times. You were turning things down, where now you've really got to nurture those leads for a lot longer. So
squeeze every ounce of that juice.
Absolutely. And so that was something that was different for me. I was, knew that going in, but it still was a little bit of a shock to how much work, whether it be showings, whether it be doing research, whether it be preparing, CMAs, whatever the case is, you're putting in hours and hours and hours of work a lot of times that's not necessarily compensated. And it's tough to express that to a client, why you're getting 2%, 2.5%, 3%, or why there's a MLS fee or a transaction fee, that there's a lot of people involved in the transaction, and you might not see 95% of that. You might just get an email. But that email had lots of people involved, and there was a lot of things going on.
So behind the scenes.
That was tough. And the contractual stuff, I being in law enforcement, I was always kind of involved in, documents and forms and legal stuff. So that wasn't new for me. I think being detail oriented is very important. Yeah, it's very important, and so that helped me make this transition as well. But I knew it was going to be a lot of just talking to people and building those relationships. So I kind of knew what I was getting involved in at that point. But it's been great. I mean, I've had a blast so far, and so far I've been successful with this. And you and I talk regularly about continuing to grow the business and work on that next. So.
And I'm glad you brought that up as a point, because I want to think that most agents starting off their real estate career, maybe they're on the fence of real estate career, going straight commission scares the shit out of people, right? So now you're somebody who's done that. What are some things you can give from experiencing that to kind of help somebody who's pondering it, besides having a small nest egg? What are some of the things they might want to think about to get in the right mindset of making the leap into a straight commission job?
Sure. Budgeting, planning, scheduling is crucial.
Cutting unnecessary expenses.
You do
for a little bit,
and there's a lot of temptation to dump a lot of money into marketing or doing something like that. I think that's something that you've got to work yourself up to. When you work maybe the leads, or anybody that gets into real estate really needs to work their own network initially. Work your friends and family. That should be your first reach. Before you start paying for leads or doing any of that real expensive, potentially expensive marketing, because most of us understand that any marketing campaign that you do, whether it be cold calls, whether it be flyers and the mailers, things like that, nothing happens overnight. You're spending money maybe today for a hopeful closing in 6 months to a year.
So, farming, I would expect 6 months before you can even think about starting to get business.
Before you start just getting a little bit of interest. So you've got any of that money you're going to spend, you have to look for the long term. It's not going to be your 2-3 months, even 6 months a lot of times. So
what I'm hearing is the sweat equity, right? Instead of using a monetary investment, you're just out kind of hustling, beating the street, talking to people trying to pick up as much free business as you can.
Yes.
And then you can kind of build and expand on that.
And again, you pick up the phone. That goes a long way. Even if it's just leaving a message with people, I feel the text message is extremely informal and impersonal. Emails are the same way. I think people appreciate a call. Even if they don't pick up, you leave them a quick message. They know that you at least thought of them and reached out to them. So getting back to the commission base, it's what you end up seeing is, especially the young realtors get their first check and they go out and they spend every dime of it. Now they're leasing a new truck and now
bottle service in Miami.
Absolutely. And 2 weeks later they're like, crap, when's my next closing? Well, it's not for 4 months, 3 months, 2 months, whatever it might be. So it's really budgeting and understanding that you need to take a little bit for taxes.
Yeah.
Who thinks about that?
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit for an investment so you don't have to work for the rest of your life, and a little bit to live on, a little bit for your business, to promote your business as well.
And then stash them away for those bad months. Because especially starting off, I'd say, for anywhere between 2 to 3 years is really what it takes to have a consistent stride where you're kind of off the roller coaster. If you do everything right, it's going to be usually that to get that consistent business. So to stash that money away, so if you kind of put away a little bit every month, then when you do have that down month, it doesn't kind of hit you as hard as if that money was spent.
Or down a couple months sometimes.
Yeah, true.
I think one of the things that we talk about a lot, but I think people who end up having success do two things early. They find people who are successful and mimic what they're doing. Find out what they're doing, and then find a good tax person.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
because there are some issues you need to address
Right out the gate.
Absolutely. Even from your banking standpoint, from what you're spending and how you're spending and where you're spending. That
Incorporating your license.
Absolutely. So, and you need to find that person quick because you're going to spend a year doing this and spinning your wheels and finding out you're going to have to pay a ton of taxes and you haven't saved for that. So finding somebody to mentor you and finding a tax guy would be my first two suggestions for anybody coming into this.
All the time, and you're absolutely right. I mean, there's a number of time where agents will come in and they have a monster year, and I always tell them, hey, get incorporated, go to the PA or LLC, change it on your license so you can be paid that way, and then put it through a business account. They're like, no, put it on the back burner. They get the 1099 the first year. Now they're paying self-employment tax. Like, oh my gosh. I'm like, guys,
that's a lot.
I told you. Yeah,
especially when you haven't budgeted for that
Correct.
at all.
And you get hit with that tax bill.
Absolutely.
So let me ask you this. What's one thing right now, Brian, you're doing in your business to kind of help you have greater success? If you were to say the one thing you're currently working on right now that you're expanding your skill set on, or maybe it's a new campaign that you're doing for your personal business, what is that and how's that going?
Probably the major thing I'm doing right now is continuing to work my network. The network that I've put together, the leads that I've taken over the last year and a half, I'm reaching back out to everybody personally, not just, I'll do some batch emails where I send something out to, hey, market's changing, this and that. And we do that. And we have good systems in place here to utilize through Follow Up Boss or whatever it might be. But I think those personal touches, reaching back out to people, even a year ago, say, listen, a year ago, you and I were talking about you moving to the Land O'Lakes area. How did that go? You didn't find a house. What's your goals? Finding out people's goals and letting them talk, letting them explain maybe where they're looking, what their thoughts are, seeing what you can do to help that process out for them.
What's holding them back?
What's holding them back? Getting them in touch to the right, maybe lender, finding a good credit repair people that you can at least refer them to. So I think, especially when you're starting out new and fairly fresh in this, it's really working that sphere or that network that you start to establish from the leads that you got previously.
And that's a great
huge
point, because that's one thing that I think a lot of people take for granted. When me and Rose started building this business initially, and we were working leads, obviously with leads, there's a monetary investment, there's referral fees, lower splits, whatever it might be. And a lot of people will get tunnel vision on just focus on how much is this lead paying for me.
Right.
But honestly, that lead, that appointment, now that becomes hopefully a client for life, you can't look at it as like a one-for-one transaction. I know you're calculating ROI and stuff, you got to do that for your budgeting and making sure the numbers make sense, but it's more on that relationship. And one thing that you're doing that I wish I could have more agents do is, now that you are developing a stronger relationship with that now past client, they're becoming your sphere, and you're hoping to generate more business not only from them, but people they know who are looking to buy and sell real estate.
And that's been kind of where I've transitioned. I'm taking less of those leads and working my network and getting more referrals. I tell the story. I had a great guy. We got him a house in Weeki Wachee using a VA loan right in the height of everything going on. It was kind of amazing to get a VA loan through at that time. But when we were there doing the home inspection, I met the seller, right? So ended up conversing with her a little bit, and she was not a big fan of her listing agent at that time, right? So left her my card, said, need anything when this is all said and done, give me a holler. Sure enough, she gets a hold of me, wants to look for something else, get her into a new house. She refers her daughter to me, get her daughter, get her a townhome. Daughter refers somebody from work to me. We're going to be closing on a D.R. Horton new construction next month. That's awesome. For her. She in turn gets me her brother. Yeah. We closed on. And so it was this one conversation. You're standing there at a home inspection anyways, just building a relationship with this lady, got me four transactions out of it, and those are all SOIs for me.
Yeah.
They're all part of my sphere. I'm not paying a Zillow fee or anything like that off those, and that's something. She's obviously going to be someone I continue to stay in contact with, reach out to her every couple months, send her a card once in a while, know when her birthday is, holidays, and take care of those people. And they, that's how you build in my opinion, that's how I'm building my business.
No, I completely agree. And I think that's kind of where if we circle back to the self-discipline part, those are the little things that don't take much time, but you have to be consistent with. And if you fall off on it, that consistency, even though, it's these little tweaks and modifications and these things that take a small piece of time, if you start to skip things here and there, it sets you back so far. It's not like, I miss a week, I'm going back a week. It's like you miss a week, you're going back a quarter.
Yeah,
because you just got to have that consistency. And pretty much people just want to say, hey, is he going to follow through? Can I rely on this person? If you're constantly doing something and you stop, well, it looks like, all right, they're not self-disciplined in their work habits.
Yeah. And the big thing is getting back to having a schedule and having a routine that you stay to. So Tuesdays I might block out 2 hours for phone calls, and it might be from 9 to 11. And I know half of them aren't going to pick up, but that's okay. I leave a message, just letting them know, hey, I was just calling, touch base with you, see how things are going. If you're interested in knowing how much your house is worth now, because the market's kind of crazy, give me a call or shoot me a text. I think that's huge to block that out, because I see so many, especially new young agents that come in and are so excited they're a realtor, and it's like, well, what did you do today? Well, I played golf.
Yeah.
What'd you do yesterday? I went to the beach. What'd you do over the weekend? Went to the club.
Yeah.
What did you do to build your business?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm waiting for a lead to come through. Yeah, I'm waiting for somebody to tell me what to do, and they're going to be looking for jobs here soon.
Yeah, absolutely. And
I hate to say that, but that's as blunt as you can get.
No, you're 100% accurate. And the one thing too is you'd be surprised, because you'll like whatever your routine is, but the cadence for those phone calls, you might leave a message to somebody. Let's say you're calling somebody monthly, and you leave a message for 12 months in a row. Month 13, you decide to stop. Now this person's never picked up the phone. You've left a message every time. They reach out to you. Hey, Brian, I didn't get your call this month.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? It's weird how that happens, because we notice that happen with phone calls, mailings, and stuff early on in our career.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's finding that just that one thing. For me, it's the phone calls. Sometimes it's some people write letters, whatever it might be. I've started to send out cards just because it's easier for me. I can write a little something in the card, drop it in the mailbox. It costs me 50 cents buy a batch of cards. It's personable. Most of the stuff you get in the mail is bad. It's the bills or it's junk. So if they get a little card from me once in a while, if it's got even a $5 gift card for Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks,
Lotto scratch off,
something like that. Just thinking of you. I won $100 in the lottery. I want to give back to everybody else and buy them all, like a $2 scratch off. That's right. Little things like that, because that just brightens their day.
Absolutely. So let me ask you this. So obviously, I know real estate, getting into it for the connections, flexibility, obviously unlimited income potential. But what is it, obviously everybody says, I might get into real estate for the houses because I love houses. Right. But obviously, a lot of people get into real estate, they do have a passion, they definitely do want to help, but it's more about creating a lifestyle for themselves. So what's the reason why? Like, besides trying to get out the money and, where it's important, and then also, being in control of your own schedule for family and things like that, what's the one why where real estate is going to be able to do X for your lifestyle, and that's why you're kind of passionate about and delivering this great level of service to buyers and sellers?
I think my personality is service-based. I think that's what drew me into law enforcement. I think when I approached...
Just helping out in the community.
Yeah, helping out people, because you're not going to make... What I learned quick in law enforcement is I can't change maybe an entire community, but I can make a major impact in some people's
one person's lives.
Yeah, and in doing real estate, if you take that service approach, you can make a big impact in a family or 100%. A person's life. Maybe even at a bad time, they're going through a divorce, they're having to downsize for whatever reason, they're moving, job changes or whatever. If you can make that as positive as you possibly can for them, or as easy and seamless as you can for them, it leaves a positive impression upon them. So I think not just approaching this, like you said, as building wealth or trying to do something along those lines. It's serving the community, serving your client base. That was probably something that really pushed me towards this particular line of work. Mm-hmm. I mean, I can't lie. I've got a very active family. This allows me to be involved in my kids' activities, be there for sports games and
I can imagine if you're on a case, you're gone sometimes for days and nights.
When I was working homicide, you get a call out and you might be gone for 3 or 4 days. We used to carry an overnight bag with us, and you may be jumping on a plane to take off and follow up on something or hunt someone down. Fun and exciting, but it's not good for family life at all. It's not good for relationships. It's not good for kids. And I missed out on a lot for a long, long time. And it was time, the world that we live in now too is not a great place for law enforcement. Unfortunately, it's too bad, but it is the nature. It's the truth. So it was time to make that transition, anyways. But I wanted to go somewhere and do something that I was still serving at least a portion of our community. And there's a lot of fulfillment, not only monetarily, but fulfillment in helping families out. And it's great when I get cards back from people and I get phone calls from people, and I don't have to reach out to some of these folks. They're calling me and asking me how my family are. And I incorporate especially my youngest. She likes to come along on showings. She likes to tell people what she would do with the homes. And I kind of, she jokingly say she's my closer. And,
That's awesome.
But she enjoys that, but that also personalizes me as well with potential clients. Shows that
They get to know you as a
they
human being.
know my family as well, and I'm invested in them, obviously.
Right.
Now they know a little bit more about me personally, not just from a Facebook post, but they actually meet my kids sometimes, and it's cool to be a part of that, be a part of the community in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. Yeah. Well, Brian, it's been great having you. For the audience out there, whether it's a buyer looking to buy, seller looking to sell, or maybe it's an agent looking for advice and maybe just wants to pick your brain, what's the best way to get a hold of you? What's the best number to reach you on and the email address to reach you on?
Sure. My work number is 813-553-5440, and I'm always available by email as well at Brian Kanicki at 54realty.com.
All right. Well, perfect. Well, thank you, Brian. We appreciate your time. And
thank you.
Audience, for everybody who kind of tuned in, we appreciate you listening to another episode of the Real Estate Playbook.